Good morning, folks. Welcome back for another episode of Code Club here on the Riffomonas YouTube channel. As you see to my right here, I am going to be recreating this graph that was published in the Financial Times back, how long ago? I should know these things. Back in September 19th. And this was an interesting plot. And so a viewer sent this in, and I am looking forward to recreating this with you using ggplot2 and other tools from the tidyverse. Too many T's in there. I'm Pat Schloss. I'm a professor at the University of Michigan, and I'm really interested in helping people develop their reproducible research skills. And so I really look forward to these live streams with you. As you log in, please, if you're watching live, feel free to use the chat to tell me where you're logging in from. It's always a delight to see people from near and wide all across the globe. I encourage you to chime in with any questions or comments you have along the way, and I look forward to incorporating those into my demonstration here today. And so I'm demonstrating, but I'm also teaching because I like to highlight some of the new elements of ggplot2 and some of the things in ggplot2 that I don't know, right? And so I figure if I don't know it, then maybe you don't know it either. And so again, feel free to ask a question. If you've got a question or an idea, then the odds are good that someone else has that very same question. As we get going here, again, you can learn a lot about what is going on with Riffomonas and other stuff I have by going to riffomonas.org. And down at the bottom, you'll see a very simple form to join a mailing list. You'll get one email a week from me. And that email, I think, is really useful because that email will highlight the figure that I'm going to be talking about in the coming weeks or the coming videos, right? And so last Friday, I put out this newsletter. How bad has 2025 been for the US dollar? And is this picture worth 1,000 words? And so here you go. You see the plot that we're going to be talking about today. And so what I try to do in the newsletter is give a 30,000 foot view of how I would go about taking on recreating this visualization. You'll notice that this was sent to me initially by a gentleman named John Taylor, who's a great viewer. So thank you, John, for sending this to me. This is a pretty cool visual, I think. And he actually sent me the dark mode version that he found on Reddit. And so I'm going to be doing the light mode. I couldn't find where this was actually published outside of Reddit, but you'll see that aside from some of the styling, it's the same plot, right? And so I'm going to be doing the version that is on the Financial Times' website. Also, if you want to get the critique video that I made and posted earlier in the week, I was supposed to have that up already. Let me get that for you here. But I, on Mondays, am trying to post critiques of the video that I talk about on the Friday, right? And so I will go ahead and open up. I don't want to play it. I want to get the link, I suppose. So I'll go ahead and grab that. And then I will go ahead and paste that into the chat. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time critiquing this visual today. I'll also go ahead and put that in here. Yeah, so I'll get that in. So if you want to see my critique and kind of my thoughts about this plot and where it works or doesn't work, go ahead and check out that critique video. I think I come out fairly negative in the end on the critique. But again, those critiques are meant to be constructive and trying to kind of get into the mindset of the developer and thinking through perhaps some of the reasons they made the choices they made, as well as then asking the question like, does the plot work? Does the figure work? Okay. And hopefully you can apply that to your own data visualizations that you're working on for your work, right? So as I said, I'm a professor at a university. I'm a scientist, and so I don't typically deal with a lot of media type things. I'm in the biomedical sciences, so I don't do economics by any means. So I do not claim to be an expert on the US dollar, trade policy, or those types of things, right? At that level, I'm kind of a lay audience member, right? All right, I feel like there was something else I was going to say. Oh, right. If you are interested in seeing a follow-up video to this one, where I take what I talked about on Monday and some of those critiques and some of the things that I do here and do a follow-up where I maybe try to make my own version, see if I can improve upon this. Let me know in the chat and we'll see if there's enough interest and I can work it out with my schedule. Maybe I'll try to do another live stream on Friday afternoon. But but we'll see. I won't make any promises. All right. So again, this is the visual that we are going to try to make. The title is Dollar's Worst Year in Decades, Percent Change in US Dollar Index for each year up until September 18th of 2025. The x-axis is the date within a year. The y-axis is going to be that percent change in the US dollar. So this is a line plot, right? And so we might think about making this with like geom-line or something like that, right? On the margin, there's 3 dates, 3 years. I don't know what these years are or why they're significant. I mean, I know what they are, 1991, 2013, and 2025. 2025 is clearly this year. I don't know why 1991 or 2013 are relevant, but hey, we'll see. One thing, though, that stands out to me about these lines that makes me think it's not going to be geom-line is that these lines, if I zoom in, if I can zoom in, yeah, it doesn't really let me zoom in, but maybe you can see it, is that there's a gray line here, but it actually has a border on it that is the same color as the background. So let me kind of zoom back here. And so it's not going to be a straight up geom line. And so we're starting to kind of see remixing of other visuals that I've made in the past. So a while back, The Economist had a plot that they called the glass ceiling index. And that, as I recall, had a border to their lines. And we used GG Borderline as a package to make borders on lines, as the name suggests, right? The other thing is that a while back, we pulled S&P 500 data, the index, from Yahoo using another package that I'm spacing on, but we'll come back to, QuantMod, I think it was called, to get stock data. And so maybe we can do the same type of thing with this, all right? So I look forward to making this with you. I guess a couple other bit of notes of kind of that high level view is that the 2025 line is red, right? And so all the other lines are grayish or light brown, right? And so there's some color going on here. There's a horizontal line, dotted line that I think is on top of the red line and everything else. And yeah, there's always some styling stuff going on as well. And so we're going to try to recreate this in R with ggplot2. And this week I'm going to do it with RStudio. That's where we are. I had just come off a week of finishing a grant proposal that I submitted this morning before I started recording. And this is like the 3rd proposal I've submitted in about 2 months. So my brain is like pretty boggled, but thankfully I'm done for now with writing grant proposals. So let's see who's chiming in. So Algeria, I don't know your name, but Algeria joining, UK, wonderful. And Mike says that they've gone back to wintertime. So they're 4 hours behind us. That'll last a few more days because this weekend we turn the clocks back. And then, let's see, will I be adding animation? Not to this one, sadly. Got Germany and Patrick from Kenya. Great to have you, Patrick. Great name. Great to have you joining in from Kenya. Wonderful. All right, so let's go ahead and get going. I'm going to open up a directory that I have on my desktop. That I'm calling $year. And, well, let's see. That's opening up a folder. I want it to open up a directory. So let's do, whatever. All right. I'm a little bit spaced on where I am. All right, let's do a new file that I'll call rscript. I'll go ahead and save this into my desktop within $year, and I will call this $_year, and I prefer to have a capital R as the file extension. We have that. We'll see that my working directory is the ~/, which is my home directory. I'm going to go over to my Files tab, and I can then go to my desktop, and then I've got a whole bunch of stuff. I need to clean up my desktop. It's pretty gnarly. And then I've got $year here, okay? And so I can then use this to make this my working directory. And so I'm going to then set this as my working directory, and you'll see that it gives us the horrible command that we should never use, is setwd. And so it's not horrible to use setwd, but I don't want to run setwd within my script, right? Because if I were to put this up in my script and give this file to you, well, you might not have a $year directory on your desktop, which is off your home directory, right? And so I always like to run my code as if I'm running it from within the directory where my R code is, as well as any data, okay? And so I have over here, it's not open, but $year original.png. Let me open that up real quick. And so this is a screen grab of the plot that, again, we're going to be trying to make today. And I think we should be able to get pretty close to getting it bang on to what they have. All right, great. And got Mr. Jaggerjag he has been in Spain, now he's in the UK. Wonderful. And we've got someone from Melbourne joining in. Wonderful. So I appreciate you all staying up or staying late or getting up early to watch this. So we'll get going with library tidyverse. All right, because I know I'm going to be using tidyverse. So we need to get the data in here. And so I mentioned quantmod, and that in a previous episode, I don't remember if it was a live stream or a recording. I think it was a recording. I did a video with the S&P 500. And so I have all my code saved here. And so where did I have that? Let's see. I'll search for S&P. There we go. So back in May. And so I'll go ahead and put this link into the chat. And so Mark is asking, why do you not use a proj directory and use that? I could do that. Let's do that. So I will go into new project, and I'll do existing directory because I already have this $year directory made. So I'll use an existing directory. That's what I want. I'll then create the project. And if I had done this, I wouldn't have needed to do the setwd, because now you can see my working directory is in desktop $year. And if I go to my Finder, I now see I have $year rproj. And at least if we're using RStudio, if I double click on that, that will open me up into RStudio. So Positron will not be using these rproj files going forward. I'm not using Positron because it does funky things with fonts and HTML, both of which I might need to use in this episode. And so instead of you having to listen to me whine about it, I'm just going to do it in RStudio. I've also shown you in previous episodes how I prefer to use Visual Studio Code. I don't have the problems that I see with Positron, but it's a little bit more hands-on. It requires a little bit more of us in kind of developing the tooling and loading packages. So very good. All right. So where was I? All right. Yes. So we have this video that I've already put into the chat. And if I scroll down, then there's the code. And so this reminds me to tell you, with all of these videos, if you go down below in the description, there will be a link to a blog post, and there you can find the code. This is exactly what I'm talking about, right? This is that code, but from that video back in May. And so you can see that I used library quantmod, and it's not uncommon that I go through here and I look for old code because I don't do stock stuff, right? And so I don't use quantmod that often, but I've got code here that I know worked, right? So I'm going to go ahead and copy in the quantmod and open up my R script here. And if you paste that in and then save it, RStudio might tell you that quantmod is not installed, and it will ask you, do you want to install it? And so you can say yes, and it will install it for you. Otherwise, you can go over to packages in the lower right corner here and install it yourself, okay? All right, so let's keep thinking about how we would use quantmod. And as I recall, there is this command that we used, get symbols. And if I then come over here and I run get symbols, because I didn't actually run library quantmod. And so you can see that it loads a variety of things, and that I then do get symbols, that I get back a data frame where it's got rows that are the date. So this is starting in 2007 January 3rd. And then it gives you, I forget what the G is, but I guess that's the ticker, that's the symbol for the S&P index fund. And so you can get a variety of different metrics about the S&P. And so we need the same type of thing, but for the dollar index. And so my understanding is that the dollar index is DXY. I'll do DXY price and Yahoo Finance. And if you check this out, you can then see this is today, right? So it's 9:16 a.m. New York time, Eastern time, Eastern Daylight Time, right? And so it has been open. I guess it's been trading really since earlier this morning, right? So I guess maybe it started at midnight. Okay. Normally I think of things with the stock market starting at like 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. But anyway, so that's the 1 day, the 5 day, the 6 month. Make this a little bit bigger. The year to date, the 5 year, and then all. Okay. And so you can see that more recently, like say over the last 10 years, it's been hovering right around 100 as the value. Again, I'm not an economist. My understanding is that we kind of want this to lay right around 100, right? Previously, we've seen big swings in that. And that the oldest data that Yahoo has goes back to, I guess, January of 1985, right? And so, yeah. So unfortunately, I can't get the data out of Yahoo here, or can I, right? I think if I upgrade to premium, I might be able to download the data, historical data. Is that what I want? Let's see. I could go max. Let's see how far back this will go. I think it's thinking. Yeah, it's not giving me back to the max. I wonder if it's loading here. Yeah, it kind of gagged. It's not happy about that. Let me try it again. Did it do it? Nope. Let's see, if we go back 5 years, will that do it? Let's see, it's kind of slow. And ultimately, this is why it would be good to use something like QuantMod, because I don't have to worry about my page or my software gagging, right? Yeah, it's unhappy. And so let's try to use DXY. So if we put DXY in here, unable to report DXY. All right, I think I needed to have, let's see, DXY. Yeah, so maybe it's not this, the ticker index that Yahoo is using isn't DXY. So I'll go ahead and grab this, and then, or maybe it's, there we go. I had the caret and it didn't want the caret. And so, this is weird. I'm a bit surprised to see that October 28th and 27th is NA values for all those prices, but it has it going back to 2007. I wonder if I look at get symbols, and let me go through here. Let's see, the blog posts do not have the links that you put in the chat though. All right. Yeah, so looking at the start date, and I think it's like maybe from and to that I can use. So if we do like from equals 2025, or let's do 20, let's try 2020, 0101. And it goes back to 2020, 0103. So I suspect the first and second that year were weekends. So let's go big. Let's go 1990. And it will only go back to 2006. Okay. So the oldest data that I can get is 2006. And so that would be 19 lines, so 19 years worth of data. And so if I look at this plot, I think it's pretty clear that it's got more than 19 years worth of data. And also we know that it's got 1991 data, right? And so we want something older. Okay, so unfortunately, we're not going to be able to use QuantMod because we can't get data older than that out of Yahoo. Alternatively, I know that the Wall Street Journal has historic data. So if we do Wall Street Journal DXY, that is the US dollar index as we've been seeing here. All right. And let's see. So there we go, the US dollar index. So it looks similar but different to what we had from Yahoo. And let me maybe make this a little bit bigger so you can see it, right? And so we can see like 1 year, 3 year. I guess it doesn't go back further than that necessarily. There is a tab here for historical prices. Let me go ahead and copy and paste this into the chat. And let's see, it gives me the ability to pick a date. So I wonder what happens if I do like I gotta get rid of that 7, 1/1 of 1980. Go. And it seems a little bit slow. Oh, okay, it goes back to 509 pages. It didn't give me any indication that anything had changed. So I can see that the most recent date is 10/28, which was yesterday as I'm recording this. And then if I look at the very last page, page 509, I see that this will take me back to February 10th of 1986, okay? So I think that's as far back as I'm gonna be able to go with this. I think that's gonna be far enough. So I'm gonna go ahead and download the spreadsheet option here. And we'll then put this downloaded file into my dollar year directory. Okay. So now we've got historicalprices.csv. I'm going to trust that it's actually a CSV. And so we'll start then with read_CSV historic. So a trick in RStudio or any of these IDEs is if I type read CSV parentheses quote, and then I start typing like HI and then hit tab, it'll fill it out for me because, again, if we look at the files tab over here, it knows that historical prices is the only thing in here that starts with an H, right? So that's pretty slick and very handy. So again, we read this in now, and I can't find that because in my excitement to get going, I forget to run these library functions. So we load library tidyverse, load our date, or load our historical data, historical prices CSV. We get the date, the open, the high, the low, the close, okay? And so I know there's a package out there called Janitor. I don't know Janitor. I do know dplyr very well at this point, I think, or at least the stuff that I might use Janitor to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and use dplyr to kind of start cleaning this up. So I'm going to do rename all to lower. And so this will rename all of my columns to be lowercase, right? Because I don't want to worry about capitalization, right? And wondering, is this column capitalized or is that one capitalized? Is it camel case, whatever. So I just make it all lowercase. And then this date is a character type, right? And so I would like that to be an actual date because there's tools from a package called Lubridate that comes with tidyverse that will allow us to do some needed manipulations of the data to get that x-axis working right? And to like filter things by time and whatnot. So I'll go ahead and do a mutate on date. And I think it's like parse date. So parse date will allow me to parse the date column to be a date, okay? And so let's see if that works on its own. No, because I didn't tell it what to parse. So I'll put date equals parse date, and it is not getting what it wants. And so I need to give it the format of the actual data. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open up the parse date help page. And we're going to want from the readr package, and let's pop this open, make it a little bit bigger. So parse date, there's a format argument, which is I think what we want. And so if we come down here, we can see format is a format specification as described below. If set to quote, date times are parsed as ISO 8601, which is what we want. We don't have that, right? We've got month, day, year. And so if I come down here, the date components are what we want. And so let's try to apply that here. So again, I don't use parse date all that much. I don't use dates a lot, actually, to be honest. And so I don't have these things memorized. I know where they are, and I think that's part of the challenge or the skill, right, of learning ggplot2 is knowing what you actually need to memorize versus knowing where to go look for things, okay? So if I do format equals, and then it starts with month, and so %m matches a 2-digit month, and I'm actually not sure if I have a 2-digit month or a 1-digit month. What do I have? Well, I don't know. Let's see. I'm gonna go with just using, I'll use that and see if it complains, because I think I might have like a 1-digit month. And then we have slash %d for a 2-digit day, and then /%y, or not y, it's going to be, I think, lowercase y. So year, 2 digits is lowercase y, month, 2 digits, b, abbreviated name, day, 2 digits. All right, we'll see if this works. It worked. What do you know? All right, so now we've got date in the date format with 2025-1028. That is the ISO, what is the number? 8601? Yeah, that is ISO standard date. All right. Yeah, so comment that like using lubridate for anything with dates and date formats. I do too, and that parse date is coming from there. Mark is saying that we could perhaps used MDY instead. Let's see if that works. So do MDY date, and I think MDY is a common enough format because that's like the standard US based date. Yeah, that works. That works great too. I'll roll with using that because that's a little bit shorter. I wanted to use that parse date because I think in a previous episode someone else tried to tell me to use parse date, so I used parse date. So anyway, I'll go ahead and roll with that. All right, so now we want to select the columns, and or actually, what do we need to do, right? So let's think about this plot. We've got the data, at least back to like February of 1987. We'll see if that's far enough back. I need to calculate the change in the US dollar index for each year up to September 18th, right? And so I know a few things then, right? Like I don't need data after September 18th, although it would be interesting to know like what's happened in the last month. But I do need to know like the year because I'm going to compare September 18, 2025 to January 1st or thereabouts of 2025. I also need to know what the year is because each of these lines represents a different year. So let's go ahead and get the year. And for that, we're going to do another lubridate statement. And maybe I'll go ahead and put this parse date up here just in case anybody wants to see it down the line. They can see what that code looks like. We can then do year equals year on date. Let me get rid of that pipe for now. And so now we see that we have the year, okay? And so we can think about using the year column as our grouping variable on the line, but we could also think about we can think about using that to group our data by the year to then get the relative change, okay? And so I could do something like mutate rel change, and that will be something divided by, let's say close, and we'll then do it by, forget if it's dot by or if it's no dot, because different functions use the period before the by and others don't. Do it by year. And so we need to then think about what we want to be. Actually, I've got this opposite, right? So the numerator is going to be the close, and the denominator is what I'm not sure about, right? But that needs to be the January 1 value, right? Or thereabouts. And so what I could do would be to do close 1. And so this will grab me the first close value when the data is grouped by year, okay? So if I run this, then what I see is that my rel change for October 28th is 1. And that's because, again, it's grouped the data by year, so by 2025. Actually, it created a column by, so that needs to be dot by. All right. So now we've grouped it by the year, and we're looking at the relative change relative to the first value in the close column, right? And so that's 98.7, which was this year, right? So I think instead what I want to do is like arrange by date. And so if I arrange by date, then now what you're going to see is I go back to January 20th of 1986. And then if I look at the relative change, that we then have so we get a 1, but that's because that is not quite the change, right? We're going to want to look at the change, not the ratio, right? So we would do like close 1. Let's see, what should it be? Yeah, close 1 minus close divided by close 1, right? So if it goes up, then we're going to have a negative. So we want to flip these, right? So it's going to be close minus close 1. And so we see that the first date is 0 because it had 0 change, right? And so let me see if I actually needed that. If I remove that arrange, yeah, so we still needed that because we see that like, yeah, that was 0. And so we want to do it relative to the first day of the year, not the last day of the year. And so now we can see that, at least going back to January 20th of 1986, we have 0. If I do a tail on this, I then see that we've gone down 0.0905, okay? And so, let's see. So using our language server implementation is more lightweight, all right? I don't know our language server. I do everything on my local computer or on our cloud computer, so I'll have to check that out in the future. So I normally do use VS Code, but I'm trying to use an interface that people are more comfortable in seeing. I don't want you to be worried about like the interface I'm using, unless I'm trying to demonstrate features of that interface. But yeah, find it easier to convert dates to the Julian calendar and think of using that. That's interesting. So the Julian date would be like January 1st would be day 1, January 20th would be day 20, February 1st would be something like 32, right? So it's the day of the year. So that's interesting. I'll roll with this, but we can kind of see that we went down by 0.09. And if I multiply this by 100, then I can see the percent drop, right? And I could do like filter date equals 2025, 0918. And so that was the last day in the plot, which was down 10.3 percentage points, which tells me that my math is good because that matches what they were seeing, right? And so I think we're in good shape now that we've got our data, right? Or we've got the y-axis at least, right? So you could use last close, or we could do, because I resorted it, we could do first close, right? So that bracket notation is a little base R, but if we did first closed, oh, what did I do wrong? It doesn't like, oh, I'm missing a parentheses. Yeah, okay, there we go. That did not work. Huh. I don't think the first is respecting I don't think the first is respecting my grouping. So the dot by would be the same as if we did group by year, right? So I do group by year, then it's not happy. Oh, I don't think this is going to matter, but I'll do it anyway. Yeah, we still get this bonkers relative change. So I don't think the first is working. So I'm going to stick with using the square bracket notation, and we'll go with that. All right. Close minus first close. Yeah, that wasn't working, Mike. I don't know. We'll roll with this. All right, so we've got the y-axis. We've got the year to group our data. Now we need to think about the x-axis, right? And so I need to basically trick ggplot2 into thinking all of my data comes from the same year, okay? So, so we could do that. We could basically say like, this is 2025, right? And that the year doesn't matter because the year doesn't show up on the x-axis. It does show up for these 3 years over in the right-hand margin, but and it also shows up with each line being a different year. But for the x-axis, I need to represent those days as a common year. I guess I could do the Julian day, but then I'm gonna have to figure out like, well, what day of the year is April 1st and July 1st and go from there. But I think it's easier to do it this other way. And so somebody, maybe it was Mike, previously told me about how we could change or update a date, right? And so I'm going to do that back up here and mutate, and I'm going to make fake date. We'll do update date. And I'm going to do year equals 2025. And so what this should do is make, in the fake date column, every year be 2025. And so that was unhappy, and I think that's because it didn't want it to be a string, it wants it to be a number. There we go. And let me get rid of this filter. All right. And so now we can see like 1986, January 20th, has a fake date of January 20th of 2025, right? Yeah. So I'm a bit surprised I didn't get an error when I did that because, let's see, if I'm gonna see something. So my concern, or what I was expecting it to complain about, is that there's gonna be data in here for February 29th. So if I do, let's do February 20, let's do 2024 was a leap year, right? So there should be a 29th of February in 2024. It is, and it, wouldn't you know, changed the fake date to be March 1st. That is naughty, right? That's surprising. So I think what I'll do so it doesn't do that is make my fake year 2024. And so now when I run it, I get the fake year to be 2024. And if I do, let's do 2025, it's going to say, you didn't have that, but I guess if I did YMD, well, yeah, so it's complaining, right? So character string is not in a standard unambiguous format for a date because there is no February 29th, 2025, right? And so again, what I'm doing here with the fake date is I'm going to use 2024 so it doesn't move my February 29th of 24 to a March 1st, right, of 25 or whatever. And so by updating it to 2024, that should work. And again, this really doesn't matter what the year is as long as it's a leap year so it behaves properly, right? And so let's go ahead and take out that filter for now. We'll certainly come back and do that filter. We can then do ggplot, because we have all of our data, our AES. On the x-axis, I'm going to put the fake date. The y, I'm going to put rel change. The group, I'm going to put as year. And then let's do geom line. And let me get rid of my face. And there's our plot. What do you know? That's the start, right? Did I have my brackets in the wrong place, Mike? Okay. I trust you. Thank you. And could you iteratively plot the dates in geom by, that is, overlay the plots 1991 to 2025 on the same plot? Could you do that? I think you could, but that would be, I think, really painful. And you'd have to set up a loop, like using map or a for loop. And I think that's too hard. Let's see. Most people prefer CSV over JSON for data. Definitely. Yeah. CSV or TSV. So like the read functions that you get with the tidyverse, I don't know that there's a default JSON reader. I think you'd have to install a separate package. So for data, I think CSVs and TSVs are far more common, or fixed width format. So yeah. All right. So like I said, we have our plot. We have some work to do to make it look a bit better. And I think I've been talking and exploring too much, because we're kind of, we're a little bit behind here. So we're not behind. We're exactly where we're supposed to be. All right, so let's go ahead and think about how we would save this to a file. So as I usually do, I'm going to go to my terminal and do file $year original.png to get the dimensions. We talked last week about how we could do ggsave with pixels. I prefer to do it with unit dimensions of like inches or centimeters. So I'm going to save this as $year.png. Width 6, height equals something, right? And so these are the dimensions in pixels. And so if I always forget how to do this. Yeah, so 6 divided by 2162 times 1518 gets me this number, okay? So I'll go ahead and put this in as my height, all right? And then I'll plop that in here and then run that. And then if I go back to my Finder and open up $year.png, there we go. We have our plot. And like I said, our goal is this plot. And so let me get these to be about the same size, but so you can see them, it'll probably be a bit bigger. All right. All right, let's there we go. All right. So at this point, we can see that we have a lot of work to do. I think the first thing that I will do is to match the color of the lines, right? And so to match the color of the lines, I need to make a new variable, which will be this year, right? So this is gonna be kind of like another dummy variable. And so I can then do this year equals 2025. I guess if you wanted to make this so it would work next year, what we could do perhaps would be year equals what? We could do year on today. So today is that, right? 10/29/2025. And then if I do year on that, then it's 2025. So this should work next year, okay? And so then when we run this, let me skip out the ggplot stuff. We are going to have a column for this year. And if I pipe this to tail, then I see that 2025 is true, okay? So then what I can do is in here, I can do color equals this year. And so now we get those salmon colored lines for the previous years and the teal line for this year. And so I am also noticing that I've got all the data going to January or through the end of December. So let's make the plot they made and go to September 18th. And so to do that, we can do a filter. And let's do that here. I'll do filter, and then I'll do fake date less than or equal to, and then I'll do 2025 09/18. So I want any date before September 18th, right? And so it might complain. Actually, it needs to be 2024, right? Because I changed the year to 2024. So it might complain because that's a string, not a year or date. So let's see what happens. Hey, it did it. What do you know? All right. And so now if I feed this into the rest of ggplot, I now see that it didn't do what I wanted it to do. Someone's going to tell me. So 2024 fake date, access fake date. Why didn't that work? Let me put this in as YMD. That didn't. Oh, there we go. I think I wasn't running everything. So let me take out that YMD. This my height is going to annoy me, so I'm going to throw this up at the top. All right. There we go. Okay, it was working without converting the string into a date. So we can see it goes to September 18th, and we already see something a little bonkers, that the teal line is 2025, and it kind of looks like their line, but there's a line below it, which is interesting, right? And so a question then is like, what year of data are we working with here, right? And so we could do like filter year, let's do greater than 1987 and fake date less than that. And so, haha, the 1987 data that we removed was that extra line down at the bottom, okay? So maybe we should come back to that later. And I'm noticing in my plot versus their plot, it looks pretty similar. It's not like a perfect bang-on representation of their plot. Some of it is because mine is like squished laterally. And so I don't totally know what the starting year was, but this seems pretty reasonable. Maybe we'll play with this later on once our plot looks more like their plot, so it's easier to spot the differences. But we've got coloring, right? But we want to match their coloring. And so I'm going to open up my digital color meter over here. And let me zoom in on their plot so I can do a better job of getting their colors. And so that's the red. And so to get the colors, I'll go in and do scale color manual. And we'll do breaks. And we'll do false and true. And we'll do values equals false and true. And then let's get the color of this brownish grayish line right there. And we'll paste that in. And there we go. If we zoom this back out, then we see that we've got the red line matching their brown lines, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of the legend off on the right, and I can do that with show.legend equals false. And that gives us more room to the right there, okay? Yep, and yeah, so let's see, let's go ahead and I think that's pretty decent for right now. So one thing that I had commented on was that like if I zoom in on theirs versus mine, you'll notice like with theirs around the lines, there's a border. With mine, there isn't a border, right? And so we can get that border effect that we saw in a previous video. If we do library GG borderline, I think there's a Madonna song called Borderline. I don't know why that comes to mind, but it does. And so I think we can replace geom line with geom borderline. Let's see if that works. That would be beautiful if it just worked. And hey, it worked. It just worked, right? So I can zoom in now and see I've got a white border, right? I would prefer to have the same border that they have, which is matching the background of their plot. So let me go ahead and grab that color. And so to be honest, I do not remember the argument for geom borderline. So I'm gonna do geom borderline and see what the argument is for the border color. And so I don't see it immediately in here. So I think typically these have like an aesthetic section that will tell me what I can use as my border color, but I don't see that. Let me go through a little bit more slowly. Geom border step, geom border line. Okay, let's come down to the examples because maybe they'll tell me how to use a different color for my example. So there's color equals white, border width, geom borderline, line type, line end. It would seem like something pretty important to put in your documentation. How do you change the color? So let's do geom borderline, and can I do like border equals red? No, it didn't like that. All right, so we will go to Google and we'll do GG borderline and see if there's more information there. And let's see. So these all have white borders, right? Here we go. So now we have border color. Okay, so let's try border color to get different border colors, right? And so that we saw would be here, border color. And of course, we don't want the red border, but I just want to prove to ourselves that we can get that red border. And what I want though is, I think I've already copied it, but just to do it again, I want the background color as my border color. So I will replace that. And where'd you go? There you are. We can now zoom in and see that we have a nice border around our lines. Okay. Nice. Let's see. Ananiah asks, hi, I love the channel and the newsletter. Question, I love R and ggplot, but I always see Python used in other programs. Is it worth diving into Python just for data visualization? I actually see the opposite. I see a lot of Python people using ggplot2 to make visualizations. I think Python folks are adopting a lot of ggplot2 types of styles. So there's a program called Seaborn and another package that are used within Python to make plots that look a lot like ggplot2. I tell people, especially if you're just getting started, learn one language. I don't care what you learn. Learn Python, learn R. I think there's good reasons to learn R. The main reason to learn one over the other is what are your neighbors, what are your friends using? Because when you run into a problem, you're going to ask them for help. And so if all your neighbors know R, well, it wouldn't make sense to go learn Python, right? But if all your neighbors know Python, then learn Python, right? And I know R. I do not know Python. I can fake Python with a fair amount of Googling, but I feel pretty comfortable with R. And so what I tell people is learn one of those languages and you will find where the weaknesses are in that language. So if you go like Google, should I learn R or Python? And maybe even people are tempted to type this in the chat. You should learn this because of whatever, or R is horrible at this, or Python's awesome at this. That typically the things people are pointing to are so far in the corners of that language that it would take you a long time to find that problem. Also, every language has its flaws, its strengths, its weaknesses. And so, I know what the struggles in R are, but I don't want to go learn Python to overcome that problem only to find other problems with Python. Does that make sense? So if you want to learn another language, master one first and then go off and pick up the other language if you feel it's necessary. When I was in school, we learned a language called Pascal, which like nobody uses. I couldn't tell you how to program in Pascal at this point. But Pascal helped me to learn Perl. And I have long since forgotten how to use Perl. And that helped me to learn C++. And I still have some C++ skills, but that helped me to learn R, right? And so just knowing a language helped me to learn all those other languages, right? I could have gone from Pascal to R or whatever, but having learned Pascal first helped me to learn those other ones. Just like learning R first will help you to learn Python or vice versa. So anyway, enough said. I'm an introvert and just Google anything and instead of asking my peers. That's horrible. You got to get over that, because when you ask people and talk to people, you have a conversation and you say, well, what about this or what about that? And when you do that, you both learn a lot, right? So yes, I Google too, but it's so much better to be able to lean over to your neighbor and say, hey, how would you do this? Or have you seen this problem before? Because they teach you, and by them teaching you, they're learning it so much better themselves. And also if you teach them, oh my gosh, that's why I do these actually, right? I teach these things, and that's actually really helping me to learn the material so much better myself, okay? Fortran 4, awesome. Yes. Pascal, sweet memories. Yes. All right. So enough of that rant. Talk to your friends. And that was really not the worst part of the pandemic, but one of the really bad things about the pandemic is that all the people in my lab were sent to like the four corners of the world, and they didn't have each other to talk to. They couldn't just lean over and ask each other for help. So anyway, I think we need to be far more social than we are. All right, so we got the lines. We've got the borders on the lines. I guess that's called a border line. And let me get these back. And now let's go about doing some more styling of the plot. So let's go ahead, since we've got this color that we used for the border line, let's go ahead and change the background to be that color as well. And so I'll do theme, and we will do, I think I will first turn, well, let me do this. I'll do plot.background, element rect, and we'll do fill equals that. We also need to do color equals that. So by default, the plot has a white border around it, and the border is defined by the color argument. And so then this gets us our white background, but we still have our gray panel, right? And so let's go ahead and then turn our panel. So we'll do panel.background element blank. And that gets our nice clean background. Let's go ahead then and get rid of those vertical, well, let's get rid of the minor grid lines because we don't need those. And so then we'll do panel.grid equals, panel.grid.minor element blank. So that got rid of those minor grid lines. And now I want to get rid of the vertical grid lines because we do have horizontal grid lines that we want to match. And so we'll then do what? Panel.grid.major. And I always forget if it's X or Y. So whatever. We'll do element blank. And I need an equal sign in here. You're probably yelling at me. I can hear you. And I guessed right? So the Y grid lines are the horizontal grid lines. Okay. So we, I think, are going to use the same brown color as the lines for our horizontal grid lines. And that was this D9CDC3. And so we'll come in here and do panel.grid.major.y equals element line. And we'll do color equals that. And that needs to be in quotes. And yep, okay. I saw the red X's and I thought there was a problem, but it's all good. So we've got those horizontal grid lines in there. You're going to drink here real quick. And so their grid lines go from -10 to 15 by 5 percentage point increments. I'm going from -10 to, I don't know what's up here. So let's go ahead and change the grid. So if I want to change the spacing of the X or the Y or the X axis, I can do that with scale, right? So I can do scale X continuous, and then we'll do breaks, and I'm going to do seek -10 to 15 by 5s. Is that right? -10 to 15 by 5s. Okay. And get a plus sign down here. And so now I did not get what I wanted. Why didn't I get that? Oh, because I did scale X, right? Y. We want Y. There we go. Now we've got -10 to 15. That looks good. I'm kind of seeing a difference in their data versus my data already, where out here, like in September, I'm finishing above 15%, whereas out here they're finishing below 15%. So we'll come back to that. Also, in this context, I'm seeing that my grid lines are maybe a little too thick. So let's go ahead and shrink those down. We can do line width equals 0.3. And so that, I think, is a better thickness. Okay. Let's pay some attention to the x-axis. And we see that it starts January, and they've got January, April, July. They don't go out to October, right? And so to fix that, I'm going to come in here and do chord Cartesian, and we'll go ahead and do expand equals false. So expand is the border that they put all around on the left and right and top and bottom. So if I do expand equals false, it'll pull that together. And I need a plus sign down here. And so now we can see that it starts January and ends out here. And we've got, conveniently enough, January, April, July, like they have. Great. And all right. So there's some spacing things that we're going to want to mess with a little bit, I think. And yeah, let's go ahead and think about that then. Just kind of thinking here. So like I noticed that we're gonna need some space on the bottom, because like the top of the tick for the July on mine is like right at the data, whereas they have some space here. So I can do that in scale Y continuous by doing like limits equals, let's do like -12 to 17. So that wasn't enough because I'm clipping the data up here. So maybe I could make this NA. What I'm really concerned about is the spacing on the bottom, right? And so that got me that up there, and maybe a little bit too much space on the bottom. So I picked -12. Let's do -11. And all right, that's not enough. Let's do 11.5, and I'll call that good for now because we'll come back and play with that some more later. Okay, so I feel pretty good about the x-axis. Let's think about the labeling on our y and x-axis. So there's no titles on theirs, whereas we have the rel change and the fake date. So we can remove that. You can do that in the labs function. We can also do it down here in theme. I'll do axis.title equals element blank. And there we go. We've gotten rid of, oops, sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing. We got rid of those titles. We don't have, or they don't have tick marks on their y-axis. So let's go ahead and do axis.ticks.y equals element blank. And so we now see that we've gotten rid of the tick marks on ours. They do have a bit of a margin to the right of the text though. So let's do axis.text.y dot y equals element text. We'll do margin equals margin. We'll do r equals, let's try with 10. And so that got us some space. 10 might be too much. Let's make that, say, 8. There we go. Okay. And we will, of course, fiddle with this stuff as we go along. Let's see. The ticks on the x-axis are thinner and longer, and mine appear to be black or dark gray, whereas theirs is the same brown color as the rest of the lines. And that also reminds me that the default color of text in the default theme is a grayish color. So let's do color equals black. And like I said, we'll do axis.ticks.x equals element line. And we'll do color equals whatever this color was here. Plop that in there. And so we can see that that tick mark is also gray. And as I'm doing this, I'm thinking like, hey, I've got element line in here and I'm using the same color. And so something I could do to make it a bit less repetitious would be to have the line argument, which we could take element line, and we can then do color equals that, right? And then I could remove, I need a comma. I could then remove the color of the line everywhere else, like so. But that's interesting. That did not do what I thought it would do. Do you see what it did? It didn't. Huh. I thought that was going to work. But that didn't seem to do what I thought it would do. It just went back to the default, which has me a little bit curious. So if I do question mark theme, and there's a line. So let's see what it tells us line does, because maybe I'm mistaken. All the line elements. Yeah, why isn't that working? All right. Not sure. So I'll go ahead and put it back and get rid of that element line. So that was weird. Maybe it's because of the way theme gray is defined that it overwrites those line elements kind of elsewhere in its code. All right, so now we want that tick to be a little bit longer on the x-axis. So we'll use axis.ticks.length.x. We'll use unit. I'll do 10 pt. So those are longer, but probably too long. So let's take that down to say 5. And that's probably pretty good. And as I look at their lines, I don't think it's actually the same color anyway. Yeah, I think it's a little bit darker of a color. So I'm going to go ahead and grab their color and plop that in. Yeah, that's a darker brownish color. So let's, yeah, cool. All right. So something that we want would be the font to change. They are using a proprietary font that I forget what it is. Let's see. Let's come back to theirs, and let's see if I can figure out what that font is. So if I highlight it and then do inspect, let's see where to go. So it's in here somewhere, in here, in here, here. There we go. For some reason, it opened it in kind of a collapsed format. Bear with me here a minute. Kind of drilling down in here. All right. So they use a tool called Flourish to make the plots. let's see. Let's see if it got font family Georgia. That's kind of hard to believe. So if I do like Google Fonts Georgia, Noto Sans Georgian. That's not what I want. All right. Gelasio. That's a serifed font. All right. I'm going to use a new font for me, which will be Nato. So let's go ahead and do library, show text, and then we will do font add Google, and I will then do Nato, and then Nato. Let me make sure that was what it was called. I guess Nato Sans is what I want. All right. And then we need to do show text opts, and we'll set the resolution to be DPI equals 300, show text auto to get everything loaded. And then, unlike that line argument in theme, here I can do text equals element text, family equals Nato. Okay, and so now I've got a different font. It's not, I don't know. It is what it is. It's like I can see the difference in the J's. Also, their one actually has a bottom base on it, whereas R1 doesn't. I'm not going to worry about it. I think we'll call it close enough. It's fun to play with different fonts. So, all right. So the next thing that we haven't done is bring in the years that they have in the right-hand margin, okay? So to do this, we need to do a couple things. So we need to create the space on the right side. So we'll add margin to the right side. And we need to make it so we can plot data outside of the plotting window. So let's do both of those first, okay? So we'll come up, and so to plot data outside of the plotting window within Cartesian, we'll do clip equals off. And so running this, we don't see any change. But then down here, with my plot arguments, I'll go ahead and do plot.margin, and we'll do margin. And then for the top, I'm just going to put in some numbers to get going. The right is the one we're interested in, so let's make that say 20. The bottom will do 5, and the left will do 5. And so what I'm trying to do now is to match the right hand. And so you can see there's extra margin put into the right here. And so if I increase this to say 50, you can see it's further over. So I need to come back to maybe say 40. Getting there, so maybe 35. And that looks pretty good, right? We've got the same size margin on the right there. And maybe we could take a little bit of time. Like I think the font size is the same size on that y-axis, but maybe we could bump the left margin over a bit, right? So I have that at 5. Let's make it 8. And maybe it could be, let's do 7, and I'll call that good. All right. And then that on the right looks good. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to get those 3 years worth of data, right? And so I think I'm going to break up this pipeline. So we'll call this all dollar, and we'll break it here to have all dollar pipe into the plot. So if I go ahead and run these, nothing's changed, right? But now I have this all dollar data frame, right? And if I what I want is, or what I need, right, is I need the label, I need the year, I need the Y position, and so that's like the last value. And then they're all going to have the same x-axis position. And also, actually, if we zoom in on these labels, you will see that there's a grayish tick mark for the year. So we're going to have to do geom text and geom segment to get that data so we can make those labels, okay? So again, I don't know why they put 1991 or 2013 in here. Whatever. I'm doing this because, well, we need it for 2025. And also it's kind of a cool effect that you might find to be useful for your own data, right? All right. So if we take all dollar and we want to filter, so we'll do year, and we've got a couple years. So I'm going to do percent in percent, and we'll do 1991, and I already forgot, 2013, and 2025. And maybe I'll do year on today. And I think I forgot a closing parenthesis. There we go. So this gets us the data for 1991. And I guess we could do like count on year. And we'll see that we've got those three years. But we don't want all the data. We only want the last one, right? And so I could then do slice max on date. And so that's going to get me the row that has the largest date, right? And so I, again, want to do this by year. And so before, where do we do that? Up here, it was dot by, and here it's by. And so that is going to, it's not ideal. All right, so now we have a data frame with the data for September 18th for those 3 years, right? I could have hard coded in, give me 2024 9/18, but 9/18 may have fallen on a Saturday or Sunday, and it might not be in our data. So doing it this year, getting the last date after we've filtered to get everything before 9/18, I think is a bit safer. All right, so this I'm going to call select $. And so now what I'm going to do is come back in here and we'll do geom text, and we'll do AES. Y is going to be the same thing, so it's going to be rel change. Label is going to be year. The color is going to be this year. And then we also need an X position, right? So I'll go ahead and put these on separate lines. And so the X, I'll go ahead and do 2025, 01, 01. Yeah, let's see what happens. And it's upset. No applicable method for rescale applied to an object of class character. And if I had to guess, that is because this X, it's thinking as a character, versus if I do YMD to convert it to a date, think it will be happier. And it is happier. All right, there we go. But I'm not seeing it in the y-axis on the plot, so that's weird. And we're getting that. We're getting the legend, right? So we can come back up here and we can turn off the legend. So we'll do show legend equals false. So that goes away, but we still don't see the text out there. And so we've got clip equals off. Oh, right. So I put January 1st of 2025, which is off the right side of the screen. And instead, like this is September 18th. So maybe like right here could be like October 1st. So let's try that instead. All right, so 10-1. Okay, that's not working. So I'm going to put in 9/18 because, oh, but that's 2025. All right. Still not there. Okay, let's go ahead and put in 9/18, 09/18. And, yes, that's beautiful. This is what we might call accidental art with a capital R. It is, for every year in my data set, it is repeating my colors, right? And what I want it to do, and that's because it's using all dollar, but I want it to use select dollar. So in here I can do data equals select dollar, and then it should only use those three values. There we go. We now have 91, 13, 2025. Now let's try to fiddle with the date. Let's make it 10/18. That's, as you can see, too far to the right. So let's make it, say, 10/01. And there we go. We've got our years in there. They appear to be a bit big, and they're not using our Nato font. So let's come back up here, and I'll do family equals Nato, and then let's do size equals 8, and then size.unit equals PT. And it's a little small. So let's, I think I did 8, let's make it 9. And it's probably like 8.5, right? So I'll do 8.5. Oh, I went too quick. All right, there we go. So I think that's a pretty good size. It's a little bit of a lighter font. If I made it bold, I wonder what that would look like. Let's see. Let's do font face equals bold. So that's pretty thick. What we can do is back up here with where we're reading it in. We can set the weight of the font we want. So I can do, so like the regular weight, let me see. So the regular weight has a 400 font and bold is 700. I'm happy with the 400. So I think I'll do bold WT equals, let's try 600. And so, I think it brought it back down to like a thinner font. Let's try 700. Yeah, that's too bold. I think we'll go back to 6. And I actually don't know that it's doing anything. If we come back to here, we did Noto Sans, and I don't know that it had, did it have, so it's 600, it had 700, but that's what we're doing. I don't know. I won't worry about it too much. I think that's an okay font size and appearance. So we've got those years in there, but I think they need to be moved to the left a smidge. And so let's do 9/25. That's probably too far. And so let's do 9/28. I think that's pretty good. And so we need to grab the tick mark. And so we could do that with geom segment. And yeah, so we'll do geom segment. And let's see, maybe we'll do annotate. And we'll do geom equals segment. And then we'll do, we need like x, x end, and then y. And actually, I'll take this back to geom segment. Sorry about that. And again, we'll do data equals select dollar. And our AES, our X is going to be, I'll grab this so I don't have to retype a lot of this stuff. It started on the 18th. And then for X end, let's have it maybe go over a couple days. So this date that I'm using in geom text up here, right? That is where the date is getting centered on that point, right? And so let's go ahead and go out to the 20th. And then Y, actually, the Y is what should be in the aesthetic, not the X's. So do Y equals rel change. All right. And we need a plus at the end of this. And good. Okay, let's see what this looks like and we'll adjust. And again, it's giving me a legend, but I can see the tick marks are in there. So let's go ahead and get rid of the legend. And so I've got 3 show legends equals falses in here. Normally I would probably pull that out and put it into theme that we want to get rid of the legends. Maybe I'll do that here in a minute. So now we can see those ticks, but their ticks are all the same color, whereas I've got a red tick down at the bottom. So let me zoom in on theirs and just see what color they're using. I think it's probably the same color. I'm going to do that. I'm going to use the same color that they're using for the ticks down here, this color. And so if we come back up here to geom segment, goes that. And it's upset because I forgot a comma right here. There we go. And it's probably too thick. Whatever. You can hardly tell that the line's too thick, but you know me, I have to obsess over these things. So we'll do line width equals, let's do 0.3. And I think that looks pretty good. Okay. Great. So I feel like we have a lot of the hard stuff out of the way. Let's now turn our attention to the title and the caption. And then there's also a logo in the lower left corner. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this stuff. And we'll put that in labs. Make sure we get our plus sign before I forget. Paste this stuff in, get it in quotes. And then we'll do title equals that. Subtitle equals that. And then we have a caption, right? We actually have a right justified caption. That's like so rare. Although this might be the third one in a week, or third one in 3 weeks that we've had. I don't know. Seems like we've done one of these before. All right. So now we have dollars worst year in decades, percent change, right? And then we also have the caption down here. And so what you'll notice is the title, the subtitle, the caption are justified on the plot, not on, or sorry, they're justified in the panel, not on the plot, right? So we want the title and subtitle to be pulled over to the left, and we want the caption pulled over to the right. And so that's very easy to do. I'll come back up here where I have the other plot arguments. So we'll do plot.title.position equals plot. And then we'll do plot.caption.position equals plot. You don't have to do it for the subtitle because that's going to get it from the title. And there we go. We have things pulled over. And actually, it is the caption probably was justified on the plot. I don't know what it was, but we didn't do anything. And that's because we have the margin, right? And so if I want to pull it over, the margin I was using was 35. So I can come up and do like plot.caption equals element text, and we'll do margin equals margin, R equals, it was 35. So let's do like minus 30. And that will pull it to the right 30 units so that it looks like it has a margin of about 5, right? And so now we see that's there. Maybe we could, I don't know, take it to like, no, that was this one here. Let's do minus 27, just to be a little bit further off. Okay, so since we're down here, let's go ahead and make that a bit smaller with plot caption. And we can do like size equals 7. And let's put these up next to each other. Make these a bit bigger so they're easier to compare next to each other. All right. So I think those look pretty good. There is a bit more bottom margin on there, so I'll go ahead and add that. We did that with plot margin. Let's take that up to say 6. All right, I'm gonna go up to 7. I think that's pretty good. And I like the size of the font. Like I'm looking at the length of the string and they look pretty similar. All right, so let's come back and do the title now. And we need a bit of margin on the top. I think the left margin is pretty good. So a bit of margin on the top. I think I had set that to 5. Let's take that to say 7. Okay, that's too far. Let's take it to 6. I think that's good. And our font is maybe a little bit too big relative to their font. So we can adjust the title font by doing plot.title equals element text. And then we'll do size equals, let's do 12. All right, so maybe a little bit smaller still. So let's do 11.5. And that's pretty good for length, which makes me feel like it's a pretty good size. Although it looks small. I'm gonna go up to 12 just because, I don't know. All right, so I think that's good. And then we want to think about, I think we need to add a little bit of margin to the top because I shrunk it down. So let's take that to 7. And I think that's okay. So then we want to put, we need to shrink the size of the subtitle, and we also need to add a margin to it. So we'll come in here and we'll do plot.subtitle element text size equals 8, margin equals margin. Let's do t equals 10, get us started. Oh, what did I do? All right. All right, so we got close. As I kind of compare, their font seems, yeah, it's a little bit bigger than ours. So let's go ahead and increase that subtitle. Where'd you go? All right, there. Plot.subtitle, I have 8. Let's go up to 9. I did 98. I think I'm getting tired here, folks. We're getting there. So I think that's a pretty good size. Not an exact match to their font, but again, we're using slightly different fonts, and we can drop ours down a little bit by adding to the top margin of our subtitle. So let's take that up to 11. And that looks pretty good. And so now we're getting there, right? And so I'm thinking, well, we need to add some top margin to our caption to move the x-axis up, right? So if we come back to plot caption, I changed the right. Let's do the top to be 10. And so that we can see moved it up. We can go up higher. And so let's try 15. And we can go further. Let's try 25. All right, so we can come down a bit. So let's try 23. And that's pretty good. Kind of from this perspective, I can see that my ticks are too wide and I need perhaps a little bit of margin on top of the labels. So again, that axis ticks X. Let's do line width 0.2. So that got it thin. Maybe we'll do 3. All right. And then we could add a bit of margin to the top of our text. So that would be like axis.text.x element text. And we'll do margin equals margin, t equals 3. And here I'm guessing at numbers, and then, I don't know, we adjust. So I think we need more, so I'll go to 5. And so that got us more space. Maybe we could do 4, and then we can remove a little bit from the top of the caption. So let's see, our caption top is 23. Let's go to 22. And I think that looks pretty good. Our font is maybe a little bit too big, but I'm not going to mess with that. I'm happy with the way that looks. And so now what we want to do is we want to add space below our subtitle to increase the space like they have here, right? I could change the y-axis limit, but I'm not going to mess with that. But one other thing I want to look at is the difference between their plot and my plot. And like I said, I'm noticing that mine is above the 15% and theirs is below the 15%. And so something that's making me think about is how they're calculating it. And so something that occurs to me is that way back up here when we did close 1, that would be the end of the day on January 1st, let's say, right? And so maybe that should be the opening of January 1st, right? So if we do open on 1 and open here, right? So it's like relative to like the opening bell at the first of the year. And that, I don't think, oh, I didn't run it all. All right. So it didn't change anything. It didn't change anything for sure. So that then got these two last upper lines to be below the 15%. So I think that's reasonable enough. There are some like obvious differences in the shape. Like I see here relative to mine. And normally what I'm seeing is theirs looks a bit more stair-stepped than mine. And I think that might be how we're dealing with weekends, right? So I suspect like a Saturday and Sunday, they're using the value for Saturday from Friday and Sunday from Friday, right? Whereas I'm basically drawing a line between Friday and Monday. I will leave that for you to figure out how to deal with that and see if that is a reasonable assessment, right? But I think that seems pretty good. I'm noticing like there's a line right here, right above my crosshairs that, I guess right above and right below, that I don't see in theirs. So maybe we should go, back up here we were filtering 87. So if we go up to like 88, does that improve things? It's hard to see. Let me actually leverage this thing and see if I can see a difference. And so, yeah, like when I go back and forward, so that line, this line here is 88. And so if I compare back to mine, there's one extra line here that's not in theirs, that's in mine. So if I go to what? Let's try 89 and see if that goes away. And then let's come back to the right side here. And that line we can see went away, right? And that looks good. I'm wondering if it's like 91 is the first year, and that's what that means. So let's take this to 90. And again, we can toggle here, and there's a line I see at the bottom, right? Like this line here is in ours, but not, well, that's the 1990 line. Remains to be seen if it's in theirs. So again, mine is at the bottom. Yeah, so I think that is missing from theirs as well. So I think their data goes from 1991 forward. Well, we know we can't do year greater than 1991 because then we'd lose our 1991 label, right? So yeah, I think we'll stay there. And so what I think is interesting in the interpretation of this plot is that if we go back to 87, 87 is worse than 2025. And so the title, Dollar's Worst Year in Decades, relative to what, right? Or what is the definition of a decade? Like how many decades is that, right? Is that 1 decade, 1.5 decades, 2 decades, 3 decades? 1991 is 3 decades ago. And so 1986, maybe 87, maybe we'll say that's 4 decades ago. So whether or not you think this is bad, the percent change, I think it's a stretch to say it's like the worst in decades. I think that's trying to hype up the problem. And while we're here, maybe I will take all dollar, and let's see. Let's rank the last data. So we'll do slice max date dot by equals date. I did it again. I don't want that period. Okay. And I think we want n equals 1. That's not doing what I thought it would do. And maybe we don't want quotes around date. All right. That is weird. Date, slice date, by date. Does anyone see what I'm doing wrong here? Doing that by date. I think I did slice max up here already, didn't I? Slice max date by that. All right. Sometimes I think if I run it multiple times, it'll do better, but it's not doing better. All right. Let's see. Slice max, date by date. It's going to complain. Don't you want that instead? Yes. Let's do group by date. And then I'm going to do summarize. This is kind of a hack, but we'll do summarize. We don't want to group by date, right? I think someone was saying by year. Yes, of course. Okay, So now this is the last, the date closest to September 18th for every year. Again, we see that, 1994, the 18th must have been a Sunday. So now let's do a range, descending order by the close, or by the rel change. And no, I don't want the descending. I want it to be normal ascending sort because I want the smallest value at the top. All right. And so what we find is that, come on, people. We had 9.94 drop on September 18th. And 8 years ago, it's not even a decade, it was basically the same value, right? And if you go back 3 decades to 1994, that was like the third most value, third greatest drop. So again, thinking about the title, Dollars Worst Year in Decades, this red line is 2025. The next one right behind it is 2017, and the one right behind that or above that is 1994. So it's not the worst year in decades. And if they'd have included all the data that we have access to, whatever. Okay, so there's something that was an aside. And I need to do 2 things to finish up here. So first, I need to put a space in below the subtitle. And so we will do that by adding a margin to plot subtitle. And I will do b equals, let's do 20. So that gets that down. Let's add maybe a little bit more. Let's do, say, 22. That brings that down. And I'm comparing the position of those grid lines, right? And so I think that looks pretty good. I think our lines could be a little bit thicker. So we'll come back up to geom borderline. And let's do line width equals 0.3. That's too thin. Let's do 0.6. Maybe we'll make it 0.7. All right, that's too thick. We'll go back to 0.6. Okay, cool. So I think this is pretty good. The final thing that we haven't done is add in the Financial Times logo. So let's do that because I would feel like I was chickening out if I didn't add that. And so let's see. So this image is separate from the plot. And so I can copy the image address. And if I plop this in here, well, it's going to download it for me as an SVG file, right? And so let me come back up to the top here. And I will do logo SVG equals that. And so we want to read in that SVG, and I believe there's a package called rsvg. And if we look at, let's see, rsvg png, that is a function that will read in an SVG file and output it, I believe, to be a PNG. Yeah, so we'll give it the SVG and we'll give it the output file. So we'll do rsvg png, we'll do logo SVG, and we'll do logo, let's do logo ftlogo.png. Could not find, oh, because I have to do library rsvg. And so now if I look at my files, I see I have logo PNG, and it's there, right? It just has that transparent background. Okay, so now we want to insert that logo. And so there is a package called ggimage that I've used in previous episodes, and I always find it just like kind of painful to use. And so an alternative that I have found more recently is to let ggplot2 do it for us. And so Mark White, who I don't know, has a blog post here on how to add logos to ggplot2 plots. And I'll go ahead and paste that in here. And let's scroll down just to kind of see where he's doing stuff. So he talks about putting the logo in the bottom right corner like that, which is kind of what we want, except we want it in the bottom left corner, right? So to see what he did, let's see. So he has the ggplot image, that's this. And so now for the logo, right? So he creates a function, get PNG, and it's going to read in the PNG file name and interpolate to make it look pretty. And he then defines L to read in the logo, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and copy this into my own code, and I'll put that up here. And so get PNG file name, and then this is my logo PNG, okay? And so what we are doing is we're making a grob. And so ggplot2 uses the grid package underneath, and it uses grobs. I think I've talked about grobs in the past. Forget where. I think we made something ourselves. Maybe it was with a Venn diagram or something. I don't remember. But if we look at L, we now see that it's a rastered grob. Okay. And so he's now going to show us that we can insert grobs into our plots, right? And using the annotation custom function. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And what's important to know is that we're going to give an xmin, xmax, ymin, ymax, or coordinates basically, to position the logo. And so we're going to have to do it in dates, right? Because our x-axis is a date. And then we're also going to have to make sure that clip is off in our chord Cartesian. So let's come down and I'm going to put this at the end here and I'll move it up just so I'm not scrolling back and forth so much. So that will be my logo. I'm going to see if I can get away with doing X and Y. So let's do X equals, so I think we'll have to do YMD on 2024 01 01, and that needs to be in quotes. And then the Y, if I bring back, oh, I accidentally closed it already. Okay, so my Y might be like -15. Okay. And so it's complaining. Let me do X min and Y min, because it's saying X matches X min and X max, Y matches Y min and Y max. Okay, and I'm getting a warning I'm not sure about, but there's the Financial Times, and so it's basically putting Financial Times across the whole shebang. So let's do Y max or X max. Let's make that February 1st. Oh. And so you can see Financial Times right there. And if I pull up their version, let's see, where's the original? You can see that ours could be a bit longer. So I'm going to go ahead and fiddle with the X position. So let's make this 2020 or 22024. Maybe that's too big. Let's make it 15. Okay, so that looks about right. Now let's move it back on the X-axis, because theirs is like left justified on the plot. And so let's do 2023, 12, 20, and then we'll do 105. And so we've got it left, but I shrunk it. So let's take it left more. So let's do 20 or 10. That's too far. So maybe we'll go to 16. Oh, 165. 16. All right. So that's a pretty good starting position. We then want to adjust the ending position. So let's make this 205. Could probably be a little bit, let's do 125. So I think that's pretty good. And now we want to move it down to like minus 15, right? And so Y min, I did minus 15. But for some reason, it's putting it above. So I think maybe the Y max needs minus 15. So I set those two things to be the same, and I'm losing it. Let's try minus 11 and 11. Okay, so I think it's getting clipped because my y-axis limits, right? And so I put the limits up here in scale y continuous. And so I think down here in chord Cartesian, I need to do y lim equals that. All right, thank you for sticking with this to the end here. We're losing it still. Why are we losing it? Maybe it's because I'm giving it the same value. So let's do y max equals negative 10. There we go. So I think it prefers to have the y max value. And so maybe the y min doesn't matter so much. Let's take this down to negative 15. So that moves it down. Let's take it to negative 25. That's pretty good. And ours looks kind of pixelated. And maybe a little small compared to theirs. So let's have ours go out to the right some more, right? So let's do 225. So that's pretty good. Maybe it's too far down, but shouldn't worry about that. Let's split the difference. Let's just do 23 and call it good. And the thing that's, all right, I can't call it good. Let's do 24. Okay, so the thing that kind of annoys me with this then is that it's so pixelated. And so I wonder if there's, we did RSVG PNG. And I don't see like a resolution. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Still need the zero line. Oh yes, thank you. All right, I'm not going to worry about this so much. Maybe I see that for, they have a quality. Yeah, I'm not sure what the deal is with this RSVG, PNG. I don't know if I can do like quality equals 100. Yeah, quality. Yeah, I don't know. I think we'll just have to live with it being pixelated for now. I think if I was worried about it, I would probably grab a screenshot, get a straight up PNG and plop that in. I'm not super familiar with how to work with PNG files, or with SVG files. So the final thing I need is that 0 line, and that I think is going over top of everything else. And so we'll get that real quick here. We'll do geom h line for horizontal line, and we'll do y-intercept equals 0. And there's our line, but we want it to be dotted or dashed. And so we'll come up here and do line type equals dotted. And that's 2 dotted. And so something we can do that I have started to like is instead of giving it a named value, we can give it numbers. So if I did like 1, 1, that'd be like 1 unit of dash, or 1 unit of line, 1 unit of space. So if I do like 2, 2, that's going to be 2 on, 2 off. Okay, so it's probably more like 1, 1. Let's try that. There we go. I think that's pretty good. All right. So what do you think? Again, theirs is right here. Mine is right here. I think, aside from that stupid logo and the subtle differences in the fonts, I think we've done a pretty good job of recreating their image. I'm happy with that. I kind of like these types of plots, but one of the things I said in the critique was that it's not immediately clear why January 1st is so significant. If you think about the plot that we saw on Yahoo, it's been all over the place, right? And so if we're down 10% this year and we're down 10% last year and down 10% the previous year, then like that's a big, that's interesting, right? But like if we were up 10% and now we're down 10%, and every year we kind of go up and down 10%, kind of like we see here, then what's the big deal, right? Perhaps what would be more interesting would be to index everything to like January 20th of the first term of a new presidential administration, right? Or something like that. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I am sorry this went long. I really don't intend for these to go so long, but you all ask great questions and you stick around, so I appreciate that. I can't make any promises about Friday, but if you're interested in that, please down below in the comments, let me know if you would like to see another live stream. And I will think about how I would take this data and present it in a way that I think might be a bit more informative to thinking about how this year compared to every other year. So let me know what you think about that. As always, thank you so much for watching these videos. I really enjoy making them. I hope you learn a lot from them. I learn a lot from them. So I would make them anyway because I learn from them, right? So anyway, keep practicing with this type of stuff. Send me any plots that you find out in the wild that you would like my reaction to or would like to see me recreate here on a live stream. All right. Well, tell your friends what we're doing, and I'll see you next time for another episode of Code Club.